Ladies and gentlemen, joining me on the line, I believe for the third time, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Shippy's on the line. Hey, Steve, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there, getting ready for the Halloween season, and I gotta start by saying this. Thank you so much for putting out a scary paranormal thing at the right time of year.
It's definitely that time of the year.
Shock Doc, Scream, Ghosts of Flight 401 premieres this weekend on Travel Channel. It'll be over on Discovery Plus. This is a story with a lot of different layers to it.
A lot of layers. Yeah, this is one of the most complex cases I've worked on. It took a lot to investigate this case. I mean, for those that aren't aware, Flight 401 was a horrific plane crash tragedy that took place December 29th, 1972. The flight was taking off from JFK International Airport and crashed into the Florida Everglades when it was supposed to be landing in Miami. 101 souls lost their lives.
So I watched part of the show so far, and I got up to the point where you're just past the wreck itself. Then you guys start getting ready to investigate, and that's kind of where I left off. What did you get when you went out into the Everglades for this stuff?
Well, there was a ton of activity out there. I mean, we went out there with a gamut of different devices and meters, everything from infrared, thermal, full spectrum, K2 meter, ITC communication devices, basically everything that's in the field currently. And we were receiving hits on all the devices, and at sometimes all the devices, which all operate in different capacities at the same time.
Now, when I said that this story has a lot of different layers to it, so after the plane crash, you have almost immediate paranormal activity in this area, right?
Correct.
And then it goes on, and this is where I had to go back and rewatch it because I was like, wait, what? The parts of this plane that crashed were used in other planes, and that led to hauntings in other places, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Eastern Airlines decided to repurpose some of these extremely expensive parts that were unaffected by the crash onto other planes, unbeknownst to these crews and people that were flying these other planes. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, staff and even passengers started seeing apparitions of ghosts. People would appear suddenly sitting next to a passenger and then vanish in thin air. At one point, it was so bad they almost had to do an emergency landing because one of the passengers went into hysterics.
Have you ever heard of a case like this before?
Absolutely not.
When was the first moment did you find this? Did, Travel and Discovery come to you and say, hey, we got this crazy case? How did all of it kind of get going?
Sure. Well, this is a case that I've been, studying for a long time. I've read the early books. There was a couple of big movies made about this far in the past. So it's something I've always known about and been, pretty fascinated about. And when Discovery approached me and said, hey, this is a case that we're, really, really looking into, and we think you would be perfect to team up with Cindy and go out there, I was elated. I was very happy.
What were you more scared of, the crocodiles and the creepy crawlies out in the middle of the Everglades, or the ghosts themselves?
Well, in this case, I didn't have, I guess, any fear of the spirits that were out there because I was, really looking at them as, the victims of this crash. And I would think that, they may be upset or confused, but I didn't really think I had anything to fear there. But yes, certainly a lot of incidents happen out there, when you're walking around that, that type of terrain. There's snakes everywhere, alligators everywhere. It's in the middle of the night, you're jumping off the airboat with all your gear. You can't see what's in front of you, and you're trudging through all this thick sawgrass. And anywhere you step, could be one of these things.
Steve Shippy from Shock Doc Scream, Ghosts of Flight 401. It's going to be premiering this Friday on the Travel Channel. Also be streaming on Discovery Plus. We'll have the info at the bottom of the page. All right, so when you go out to the middle of nowhere to investigate this whole thing, there's always that moment, you read about it, you learn about it, and then you go investigate. What was the moment that you went, okay, there is something to this?
For me, I would say fairly right away as we were traveling out there by airboat. You got to think the Everglades, it all looks the same when you're out there. It's very hard to really tell where you're at because all you're seeing is, tall sawgrass and lots of flooded water. But the medium that I was with, Cindy Kaysa, right away, she starts pointing off into a direction that we weren't even headed in yet at the time. And she kept saying, we need to go over there. We need to go over there. I'm hearing screams in my head, screams for help. And she pointed right toward where the crash site was. There's no way she could have known that.
Yeah, because I believe in the show you say that she likes to go in as cold as possible, correct?
She does, yeah. I mean, to an extreme, actually. She doesn't want to hear anything, even things that I wouldn't even think would be an issue. She just wants to know nothing about it and go in very cold and say whatever she's feeling or thinking.
Steve, you've done a number of these different episodes and different shows, and you're well known in the paranormal world. Where does this one rank for you? Between activity, between maybe that kind of moment that gives you the heebie-jeebies. Where's this one at for you?
To me, this I would say this ranks right at the very top for so many reasons. How notable this case is, the type of activity that we experienced, that we captured. Being able to talk to all these different experts, even being able to interview survivors of the crash. For many different reasons, I would put this right at the top.
I gotcha. Steve Shippy, Shock Doc Scream, Ghosts of Flight 401 coming out on Friday. We'll have the details at the bottom of the page. Steve, what else you got going on? I know it's the Halloween season, and a guy that's into the world of the paranormal's probably got a lot going on. What are you doing?
Definitely have a lot going on. Something interesting is the very next day, this coming up Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Travel Channel and Discovery Plus, I'll be featured on an episode of Ghost Hunters called The Cursed Coliseum.
Really? Which Coliseum?
It's down in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Boy, what is it about the South and the paranormal?
Well, there definitely seems to be a lot of activity in the South, of course, always, the East Coast. But then again, throughout the heartland and the Midwest, I mean, really, there's activity everywhere, but the South definitely has a vibe about it.
I got you. Steve, if you had an all-expense-paid trip to go investigate somewhere, like on Halloween, where would you go?
The catacombs.
The catacombs. Over in Europe, correct?
Yeah.
In France, if I remember?
I believe so, yep.
Okay, why that? Just because of the lore with it, or do you have a interest in it? Why so?
The lore with it, the claims of the paranormal that I hear from people that have been in there, the history, I guess those are pretty much primarily, the elements.
All right, I got you. Steve, if we want to follow along with you, where can we find you on social media?
You can just look up Steve Shippy on Facebook. You can find me there, Instagram, all that good stuff. Or my website is hauntedSaginaw, SAGINAW.com.
Perfect. Steve Shippy, we thank you so much, man.
Hey, thank you for having me back.
Steve Shippy from Shock Doc Scream, Ghosts of Flight 401. It premieres this Friday on Travel Channel. We'll have all the details at the bottom of the page.